A very good morning to you. How are you doing? Welcome to Parenting Tuesday on Jam 316. Every Tuesday we take some time to discuss issues that have to do with parenting. And this morning we want to look at education and education in this country. So something very interesting has happened, something that has never happened before, something that no one anticipated. Schools are on pause. The pause button has been clicked and we are on pause the rest of the year. Hopefully January our children go back to school. And so I'm wondering, is this a golden opportunity for stakeholders in the education sector and the parents to begin to relook at the education patterns in this country and everything we do concerning education and to change what we need to change? First of all, are there things we even need to change? Because we have 6, 7, 8 months to relook at these things. Children are just at home. There's no pressure for exams. There's no pressure for school fees. This pressure has been put aside, and we have been given on a golden platter an opportunity for us to pause and look at things. So my question to you this morning is this. Do you think we need to relook at the education system? And if we do, what are some key areas you feel we actually need to look into and change? Be part of this conversation. SMSs 20316, WhatsApp 0786 316 316. I have an amazing guest who will be joining us in studio in the next short while, so stick around for that. I hope you are doing well and you are ready and geared up for some wonderful discussions this morning regarding our education system. And I have a couple of SMSs coming through. This one says, Pastor, yes, a big yes to that. Schools have deviated from what missionaries had in mind when they were establishing schools, and their aim was to teach people to read the word for themselves, and that is no longer considered anymore. And then I have another one here from Liz Wamboi. Liz Wamboi says that, yes, we need to relook at our education system and figure out what we need to change. This is a golden opportunity that we have. Liz Wamboi, thank you so much for your message this morning. Well, this morning we are joined on Skype by Dr. Wandia. Dr. Wandia, it is so good to have you. Thank you so much for agreeing to come, or rather to join us and to have this conversation. So I'll throw the same question I'm throwing out to my audience as we begin this discussion with you. Do you see this as a golden opportunity for us to relook at our education sector? And if yes, what are some key things we need to start thinking about?
Okay, thank you very much for having me. Good morning to everyone who's listening. I'm very honored to be here. This is a golden opportunity, but it's still not enough. The kind of work we need to do on the education system will take more than 5 months that we have. Mm-hmm. But first, I want to say that it's the parents who might have to change.
Oh, the parents.
Even before. Yeah.
Why the parents?
We're talking to parents.
Mm-hmm.
I think parents have to think differently about what schools are. Schools are not as important as we tend to think they are.
Oh.
Schools are teaching for society.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever you're taking your kid to school for is for the sort of like the basic social agenda that the country has.
Okay.
So the other things have to be taught outside the school, and I think we are putting too much focus on the school, mm-hmm. and that's why we are getting disappointed.
Let me cut you short a bit and throw in something there, because I find that very interesting, because I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and he was saying how, a lot of his friends who are parents like him are stressed out in this season because they don't know what to do with their kids. They're saying they need to go back to school, and I think that ties into what you're saying.
Yeah, and I've been telling parents the few times I get to talk to them, mm-hmm. One of the things that kids need from homes and community is a work ethic. That cannot be taught by the school.
Yeah.
The ability to be disciplined, to see through a task to the end. That is not something the school teaches, because you need a person who is emotionally attached to the child. Mm-hmm. Character, identity, those are the things which a school cannot teach. So this is a wonderful time to teach those things, because the discipline and the character are what make children do well in school.
Okay.
And I'm not talking about discipline, good manners, but discipline in terms of ability to see something through to the end, to stick to a course, mm-hmm. To not get discouraged. That kind of character is what children get from home. And it's not from lectures and just sitting down and doing what the parent says. get them to cook, get them to clean the compound, get them, if they're not in shags digging with everybody else.
Yes,
but
yes.
get them to do these tasks and chores consistently, and that's what gives them the discipline. And then, of course, buy them books to read. The children need to read more than just for academics.
Okay.
They need to read history. And this is the time also, if you're not able to go to shags, get your children to call your parents, their grandparents, and ask questions about what was life like for you. What did you do? Were there telephones in your days? Those things.
Yes.
Because that is a history lesson, because the grandparents will eventually say, those days, this was like this and this was like this. So these are the lessons that children don't get when they're in school, and it's a good time to teach them to the children.
There's a song that was sung back in the day, and I know probably you know it. I saw you mention it in one of your writings. And for me, I keep saying that song messed us up, because I believe we still think along the same lines. The song that said, so many vijana, muongeze bidii, mwisho wa kusoma mtapata kazi mzuri sana. And I feel like we still push our kids in that direction, that you need to get A's, you need to go to campus, you need to do all these things so that you can get a good job and have a good life. But is that really a true story?
Well, it was. Let's just admit that it was. If you look historically, and actually I didn't conceptualize it until I asked my parents about it just the other day.
Okay.
So you see, I'm also still learning from my parents.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. In those days, remember, I don't know if people know this, but in the 50s, 60s, and 60s especially, and a bit of the 70s, Kenya had transitioned to an African government. They needed people to work in the institutions, so it was very easy to get a job, and that's what our parents were seeing. They were seeing that people go to school, even standard 4. You finish standard 4, there's a hospital that wants to train you as a nurse. Yeah. So it comes from a history. It was true that there was a time if you went to school, you got a job. But now that no longer applies, because now the government is full, it has more than enough workers. So the idea of getting a job doesn't apply. But also, of course, as we know, the economy has changed.
Yes.
So the majority, most of the work is not done in government offices and company offices, which was the case that time. So let me not blame people for thinking that after education you get a job. Yeah. But what we need to realize is that the economy has changed, and so you're not going to get a job. So unfortunately, up to now, the education system is still for employment. Yes. Even though we are being told about TVET, it's on the surface, but underlying, even the way we teach, the ethos, the philosophy in the classroom is still employment oriented, unfortunately.
Very true. Let me take you back to the parents issue, because it seems like parents don't have time, because we live in a cutthroat society today. Parents are working the whole day. Some parents are doing 2 jobs. Some are having a job and classes in the evening. And so that's why we delegate most of the things to the house managers and the teachers. And so how does a parent then begin to educate or teach their children some of the things you just mentioned? Where do they get the time to do that? How do they balance?
This is now where we go back to our community ethic. I've been saying people should form chamas, family raising chamas. So one parent, can decide, okay, I'm going to, be the one who is getting the kids to cook or to whatever. But I think after a certain age, you can still manage by telling the kids, today supper is coming from you guys. You're the ones who are going to cook. Yeah. And then when you come home, you eat that, whatever they give you, no matter how it tastes.
Burnt offerings.
But just encourage them to stick to a task. It's actually not that difficult. Yeah. And then you can also, I think parents have to be creative. See, are there neighbors, are there older children who can be part of this activity, and then you just give them a task and tell them they must finish by the time you get home.
Okay, I think for some of us, because when we were growing up, we did quite a number of those things, and we looked at them as punishment. So we vowed, my child will not do these things. I will hire somebody to do it for them, but we don't realize that it's not for their benefit.
No, the kids have to cook. They have to cook. They have to clean. They have to do the compound. If you have a compound, then also teach them crafts. Get them books to read. There's so many things they can do. Yeah, but the point is to keep them focused on something and opening up their minds and training their hands. That's it. And let me also say that the reason you're also doing this is because after school, these are the skills that become more important than the papers they have.
Okay.
The ability to stick to a task is something they will need whatever career they go into.
Okay. Do you think we're having enough conversations on these issues as a nation?
No, we are not, because I think we are fighting over who is getting what, and we are forgetting that our nation is about the next generation.
Okay.
Our focus should be on the next generation, not on these elders. And you know, of course, they are eating what should be for the next generation.
Definitely.
But I think we need to think about our children. What legacy do we want to leave them? What country do we want to leave them? And I think the other thing we need to do is to think historically. We are too grounded in the present. And we need to think, where did we come from? What happened then? And then how is that impacting today? And what can we do to make sure our children don't have to deal with it? Although also, I think this is a really good time to tell our children about where we came from.
The problem is some of us don't know where we came from.
Then now that's what I'm saying. It's the parents who have to educate themselves now. They need to start reading and finding out where we came from. Call your parents. Like you hear, I had to go and ask my parents, hey, what was this education story about?
Yeah.
So I'm still learning. So we need to ask those questions and get our elders to tell us what were they thinking in the 60s and 70s before, you know, when things were starting.
Okay. Away from the parents, let's get to the schooling system, because I find it very interesting. Okay. Some schools are still moving on, schools that are doing maybe other systems like the British system and all that. So those who are privileged to take their children to those kind of schools, they are still continuing with schooling, online classes and all, and then the rest have paused. Is it time for us to rethink how we do school in this country?
Definitely. I mean, first of all, the very idea that we have so many systems in one country, we have to have a conversation about that. You know, do we want this? Do we want some people learning one thing and the others learning another thing? So that's one thing to do. But let me just tell parents, don't panic. It's not a disaster.
Yes.
Children are very resilient. They can catch up. And especially if your child is comfortable, is growing in character, they will catch up when they go back to school. So it's not a disaster. But the other thing we need to think about is, why are we educating? We still have not answered that question. And even though people are saying, right now the government has been saying they are changing the kind of jobs that we are getting educated for, they are still not dealing with that ethic of jobs. So now they're telling us it's TVET, it's competency, but it's still jobs. You know, when are we going to educate our children to be good citizens and good people who will be kind to one another and care for the environment? That's what we need. And we are still stuck in the jobs. This is what employers want. These are the jobs of the 21st century. We are still talking in the jobs language. So we need to remove that. And then hopefully now we can start talking about arts education, for example. We need students to do more reading that is not geared at exams. We need to do more, maybe work outside the home for the children and for the teenagers. But we need, and then maybe also the boarding schools is not such a good story. But that is linked to the way we organize our space.
Okay.
So especially in the cities, we don't have space for schools. So you have to take your kid to a school that is far from home, because there's no land in the area for schools and playgrounds and kitchen gardens and those things. So that's why I'm saying this will take a lot of work. It will take more than 5 months to really think through the whole thing.
Okay. This morning we are hanging out with Dr. Wandia, and we talked about the education system in this country. Is it about time we relooked at it, and what are some of the areas we need to start talking about so that we can effect change? Because I believe we have a golden opportunity right before our hands. If you have a question for us or a comment you want to throw in, 20316 is the SMS line. The WhatsApp number is 0786 316 316. Be a part of this conversation. If you are a parent, we need to hear from you. How are you coping with your children at home? Wanamaliza chakula. It is Parenting Tuesday. We are talking about our education system. In studio with me via Zoom, we have Dr. Wandia. We are talking about this golden opportunity, as I see it, for us to relook the education system. Some of the comments coming through, this one says the whole issue is the disconnect between the curriculum and what is required in the 21st century workplace. We have serious skills mismatch issue. If sorted out, our graduates will be self-reliant. That is what Rachel Mungai is saying, and I can see Daktari is shaking her head thinking, what are you thinking, Daktari? You don't agree with what Rachel is saying?
I mean, we're talking about jobs, and then someone says we need the skills for that. I mean, I think there's a contradiction there. We're either educating for society and the people for themselves, or we are educating for the market. I don't think we can have both.
Oh, really?
So as long the people who believe in the market are the ones who are complaining that the skills are not matching to the market.
Yeah.
But what if people? I mean, what about the rest of other people's lives? It's just not about only work and money. People have to be parents. People have to be citizens. They have to be able to adjust to whatever is happening. They have to be able to make good decisions. Those are not market skills. Those are human social skills.
But I think the script has been that if you have a good job and you're able to make money, then you're able to attend to those other things that you're talking about, being the good citizen and all that. The way from my perspective, the way the education has been packaged in the country is that if you get a good job and you're earning a good salary, you're getting some good money in, then all these other things will fall in place. So are we saying that is not necessarily true?
That is not true. And if anyone should know it, it should be Christians.
Yes.
It's not money that makes you a good person. It's not money that makes you care for society and care for other people. It's your values, and it's also an enabling environment where institutions allow people to intervene in life and to intervene in the life of others. Those are the questions that we need to be talking about. How do we educate in a way that makes our children care for society and to care for one another? But if we are still going to keep on talking about the skills for the marketplace, the skills for work, then I think then we should expect these problems that we are still having, because to educate for the market is to stop kids from thinking. You can't have both. And I can tell you from my experience as a teacher, I teach students things that are relevant to life and to their souls and to their character and to their families. But they don't listen to me unless I'm telling them which employer will need this skill. You can't have a life. We are what is it called? Preaching water and drinking wine.
Yeah.
We are telling kids, be this, but that's not what we are educating them for. We are educating them to take orders from a boss and to make money.
Yeah.
And then we start wondering, why are our children so cutthroat? Why don't they care? Why are they selfish? It's because we told them to think about jobs instead of thinking about character and people.
Ooh. So are we saying jobs are overrated in a sense?
Yes, I think jobs are overrated because if you have creative people, they'll be able to come up with new economies, new ideas, and they'll be innovative. But that's not what we are telling them when we tell them about skills for the workplace. Skills is about what your hands do.
Yeah.
It disconnects from your brain, from your soul.
Ooh.
Skills is just the fingers. So when you keep telling children it's about skills, it's about their fingers. And so eventually they start thinking of, I'm doing it because you told me. That's a generation we are raising. We are raising a generation who cannot do things out of their own empathy and initiative because we told them it's about the skills.
Wow. This one says, greetings. How can we as parents encourage our children to go all the way to the university, whether they use the degree or not? Because the idea is to open up their minds and teach them how to think.
Reading. The children have to read, and they have to make this a habit. But parents, they have to see you reading. You have to have a bookshelf.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to have a bookshelf in your house. Yeah, even just put the books there, because at least from my experience, what I did was I went to my parents' bookshelf and picked what was there and I read. So you have to have a bookshelf, they have to see you reading, and then you have to encourage them to read. But also, because we are oral and we like stories, encourage them also to seek stories from their elders.
Yes.
Yeah, let them call their grandmother and ask, or their auntie, and ask, how did you meet Uncle, And then they'll be told how we used to date in those days.
Yes.
How we used to stand outside Wimpy on Kenyatta Avenue. And, let them hear these stories, because what you're trying to do is to teach them to think beyond the present.
I love what you're saying,
because that's what will now make them be innovative in the future.
Okay, listen to this one. This one says the topic is very appropriate, and Ruth is saying the 60s education catered for even housework, including how to be a successful wife, carpentry, gardening, etc. We seem to have lost this, so we don't have a wife who can cook. Okay, the job market shrank in the 60s. A person with good handwriting had a ready job as a karani. We need to retool our children for the changed market. Now, I'm reading this and also asking, because I've been listening to a bit of your content, and you've done a bit of research of how this whole education system was set up, and I think it's important for us to understand that as we chat about what's the way forward.
Okay, first of all, Kenyans need to understand that there were opposing views of education. People never agree. So in the colonial times, there was the missionaries who just wanted people to learn to read, and then they were willing to teach culture and reading and do more of the arts, which is very surprising when you hear what now Christians say about the arts not being important.
Yeah.
Then there was the government, the colonial government. The colonial government would have gone either way. I don't think they really cared. But the important thing for them was people who could write reports so that they could send to the colonial government, and people who could do the basic clerical work for the colonial government. So they were not that invested in education. And then there was the settlers. The settlers did not have enough labor on their farms, and they were afraid that taking Africans to school would make it even worse. That first of all, that if you give them a literal education, which missionaries wanted, they would not be going to. They would not. It would be even worse in terms of the job market. So even this story we are saying about job market, it's a colonial settler narrative. It didn't start this after independence.
Okay.
So these three groups had different ideas about education. And then, of course, there were the Africans who, first of all, they started saying, hey, our children are going to this school and they are losing their culture. And identity. But also, those who were now starting to do well were saying, the education we want is the one that will make us rise up the ranks in the colonial system. So giving them the skills that skills language, which is what the settlers wanted, was not going to work. And people like Harry Thuku made a lot of noise about this because they said, you people are educating us to always serve you.
Yeah.
So you can see there was already a disagreement. So even the viewer who talked about people being taught housework and those things,
yes,
it was not as innocent as we think. Because when you think of it, our mothers knew how to cook.
Very true.
Our ancestors were cooking.
Yeah.
So why would you teach cooking in school? It was to teach the European style of cooking with a kitchen and a cooker and a house girl and, so they were being educated into a certain economic system.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about the skill. So we need to understand these differing interests so that now we start to say, what is in our interest? What do we want? What kind of Kenyan do we want to come from the system? Personally, I want a Kenyan who is confident and who cares for other people.
Okay.
And who is innovative. How do we do that? We're not going to do it by keeping on telling them about their skills. We have to give them something else. Yeah. And another thing we were told a few months ago, which I thought was very interesting, these days children and the youth are not asking what, they're asking why.
Why, yes.
And if we are not answering that question, why they are doing this, why this is happening this way, if we don't answer that question, the media will explain it to them. And I'm not sure we will like the answers they will get. That
is so true, and I think the media is already doing that. I find that thought very interesting because I remember once I had an altercation with one of my children's teachers, and the teacher was saying, your son is very rude. And I asked him, why would you say that? And the answer was, he asks a lot of questions. You see, my generation, your generation, asking questions was considered as rebellion. And the children today want to find out why. And if you don't give them a good, strong why, then they will not do it. But are we equipped to answer that? I don't think we're equipped to answer that why.
In fact, that's our greatest handicap, I think, as our generation.
Yes.
We can't answer why. We just say, but that's how it's done.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think we need to re-educate ourselves and start asking, why are things happening the way they are? Because, for us, it was obvious because our parents, at least if I'm talking about myself, we could see that our parents got a benefit from education.
Yes.
So the why was in the environment. But now that things are not as obvious, it's not, our children can't see. They can't see why things are to be done. And so we must explain. And this goes even to faith. Even faith, we must explain.
Yes.
We can't just keep giving a verse. We have to say, this is what the Bible says, and this is my interpretation that applies here. So we are very uncomfortable, my generation, with that question. Okay. We were not taught how to answer it.
Wow. Listen to this one. This one says, my 16-year-old son is an author and a software developer. The 844 system forces him to do biology and chemistry, yet he prefers to do the subjects that he's passionate about, English and computers. Shouldn't the curriculum in high school be geared towards developing the children's talents and passions instead of killing their dreams, in that when he does not make it to these subjects, his dream of pursuing his passion in university will be shattered?
I think people need an all-round education all the time. Yeah, I don't think there's something necessarily bad about learning biology, whether you use it in your career or not, because human beings are biological beings.
Very true.
And they're environmental beings. How will they understand basic ideas about pollution, about health, about the pandemic, if you're not teaching them these subjects? So we need to stop looking at them as only this will not be useful in my career. And I'm telling you what my mother told me. I'm not even telling you what I was taught in school. That's what my mother told me. She told me, you will need to know a lot of things, so just learn it. Because I also used to tell her, why should I work hard in this subject if I don't want to pursue a career there? But she told me, do the best you can in all the subjects that you do, because what you learn there will always be useful no matter what. And she would give me examples of the things she learned that she was not using at work but ended up being useful to her life. So parents, let's not take the kid's side, sorry to say.
Yeah.
It's not that you're against your kid, but use the opportunity to have a conversation with your child instead of saying my kid is complaining, even me, I'm going to complain. Let's be the parent. And when the kid says, why am I doing biology? You tell them, what did you learn? And then if they say something, you say, oh, that is relevant to this. Or, check, or even you, the parent, can look online for interesting ideas about what is related to that which the child is complaining about. But please don't side with your kid in narrowing their vision. Encourage them to look beyond and tell them, talk to me when you're 40 if this is still irrelevant. Don't follow that narrative. It's not helpful to the mind.
I like that. There's a very interesting question here that says, so this education system was made to make us better slaves? We'll answer that one shortly. Keep listening to Family Radio 316 and watching Family TV. It's Parenting Tuesday, talking about our education system. Is it about time we relooked at it and changed it? Your thoughts are welcome. 20316 SMS line. WhatsApp number 0786 316 316. It's about 19 minutes before we get to Saa Tatu Asubuhi. Someone is asking, so this education system was made to make us better slaves?
True or false? I'm supposed to say, because I'm trying to be very careful. This is family media.
Yes, I know.
Yes. I think I would agree. Yeah. But it's more complicated than that. Yeah. But, if we look at this as just a system rather than life, then we are able to look at it in context. I think our problem is that we are taking this education system as if we go through it, it sorts out everything in life.
Yes.
It doesn't, and it never has. It was the system was originally set up to make the colonial economy work. That was it. So now we have to say, what do we want as Kenyans? We want this kind of society, so what kind of education matches the society we want? But, I think anybody, especially Christians, should know, even when you look at the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were in a certain state system. But they still manage to defy it and even play by the rules and say, okay, you're feeding your people with this, you feed us with this, and see after a while what happens. And they were just as strong as the others. So, this is just a state system. It's not the all and all. And what we need is to think of ourselves as people and ask, how are we going to navigate this or change it?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think
but it's not a disaster.
Yeah, I like that. It's not a disaster. I think one of the other challenges that we are facing when it comes to education and parenting in this age is technology. Because for me, I remember I used to go to the library just before the exams. We had libraries. We used to go to the library, but now our children have got gadgets and there's information flying left, right, and center. And some of us parents don't even know how to deal with that. So that changes the whole playing field. I don't know what your thoughts are in regards to the role of technology where education is concerned today.
The basic thing is guide. I think one of the things parents need to remember is that they are guides. That's it. You're the one who is explaining the world to your child. And not always protect, but always saying, this is good and this is not. So don't feel overwhelmed by technology. Guide the child on what they can do with technology. Look for websites yourself. So also, I think we need to also be willing to learn as parents. Look for what is out there that is helpful so that you direct your child to that. Because your child cannot, what our children need is guidance. It's not access. It's guidance on how to navigate all the things that are on the internet. So that is where you come in. So look for websites that might be helpful, and then do the work of going through the website. Don't recommend something that you haven't gone through yourself.
Okay.
And then now help your child with that. There are so many useful resources on the internet, so you should not avoid it, but you have to do the work of looking at what's there and then guiding your child towards it.
Okay.
Yeah. And in fact, actually, a lot of the stuff I teach right now is about how to navigate the internet, showing the students where to get certain resources. And it's a lifelong lesson. It never ends. So
that's good.
Parents should not feel overwhelmed. It's not just them. We are all there. But be your children's guide. That's the most important thing. And put your soul into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody's asking, what are your thoughts about homeschooling?
About?
Homeschooling.
Again, I have to be polite. I don't agree with it.
You don't agree with homeschooling?
I don't
Why?
agree with it because of the roots where it came from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And basically, in a nutshell, I would say it withdraws citizens from society. And that was the logic with which it was set up. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think that people would like to see more about what I've said. I've put it on
your channel,
my blog. Yeah, on my blog. And then there's a conversation with the elephant where I explained more about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see we're almost out of time, Dr. Wandia, but I want to find out from you, what's the way forward? Because one of the things I'm really hoping is that come January, if our children will go back to school in January, that it will not just be back to normal. For me, it will be a truly wasted year, like the PS had said. What do you think should be the way forward? Even if we are reverting back to school as it was, but what should be the way forward?
I think, for me, I don't think fixing the education system is the priority now. What we need to fix is the way we've organized society.
Okay.
Do our children have playgrounds? Do they have spaces where they can go and play? That's the first thing, the most important thing. And then having, apart from spaces to play, social halls, places where they can learn crafts and all those things that are outside the school system. I think the reason why we feel so imprisoned in the school system is that we have no alternative.
Yes.
Which is really, really sad. It's very sad. Churches are providing them, but if I go by what I'm seeing in my neighborhood, even the churches have very small compounds these days.
Very true.
So there's no space. And I think that is the first thing we need to address, because then the children can be doing something else apart from waiting for teacher to give them homework and going on Zoom and whatever else. I think that's what needs to be fixed, because then these skills that we are saying our children are not getting from the school system, they get from elsewhere.
Yeah.
My what I am today is barely from the school. Barely. I'm not saying the school wasn't important. It was very important in giving me a certain kind of knowledge.
Yeah.
But I've learned a lot from interactions, from church. We used to do our plays at church. I don't know whether kids are doing those things these days.
Yes.
But there was so much other things that we did, and those complemented what we were doing in the school system. I think those things need to be beefed up, and parents need to start going to their communities, their MCAs and their pastors and saying, what else are you providing for our children to do? Yeah, and then as our children are flourishing and growing, then we can now also fix the education system. Yeah, but we can't fix it without fixing the rest of what is outside the school system.
Wow, Dr. Wandia, thank you so much for finding the time to talk to us today. I know you're very vocal on social media. Maybe you can give us your social media handles for the people who would want to follow up on you and just get to interact with your content.
Okay, my blog is wandianjoya.com, and then I'm on Twitter on WMJoya and then Dr. Wandia on Facebook.
And on YouTube.
And on YouTube.
Yes, what's your YouTube channel?
My YouTube channel is Maisha Kazini, because now I'm talking about work. I think also we really need to think, we need to rethink work if we are to rethink education. So now I talk about both.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and greetings to your husband. I know he's somewhere behind there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, and have a good day to everyone.
You too. I hope that conversation has been beneficial to you. By the way, catch up with Dr. Wandia. Look out for her YouTube channel. She's got some very thought-provoking conversations on work and also education. I think that will be beneficial to you. My time for Parenting Tuesday is up for this Tuesday morning, but I hope that what we have discussed has provoked something in your thinking. Parents, we need to take up our role and our responsibility to facilitate our children's growth. School is good, but it's not everything. I can guarantee you there's so much more they need to learn from us in our homes, in the community, and we are the ones to do that. Let's not abdicate our responsibility. Mambo ya serikali saidia, we are the first ones responsible over them. And my friend, even as Christians, we will give an account for them because they were given to us. So let's play our role and let's create a better future for our children.
For this and more of our shows, log on to www.familymediaonline.com to enjoy a wide variety of programs, from current affairs to testimonials and features, pastoral and inspirational shows, kids entertainment, and so much more. Also stream live on www.familymedia.tv.